Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Loan Officer Playbook Podcast. Today, we're joined with Thomas Seelbinder. Thomas is the head of product at Model Match. And get this, Model Match is the market intelligence platform for the mortgage industry. And I'm super excited to have Thomas on the pod today. Welcome, Thomas.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be able to do this with you, man.
Amazing. Thomas, I feel like you guys really pioneered the data age of data-driven originations. Like when leaders started looking into cloud and data, model match was right in the middle of it. And now we're in the early stages of AI. How would you compare the early stages of data-driven originations to now the early stages of AI?
I think it's the natural evolution of understanding the capabilities, leveraging the data that you currently have and getting a full grasp on the depth that you can go within a lot of the data that we have access to today, right? When it comes to market intelligence, what loan officers are doing what in what areas, and same thing for real estate agents and how that all connects together. And as that collection method grows and matures, and gets older and evolves, the depth of it changes. And when the depth of it begins to change, you can really start to understand, ultimately what the horizon starts to look like, right? How far can you go with all of this data? And then ultimately, how do we take this data from numbers on a screen to put it in the hands of an originator or a leader, a manager, all the way up to the top? How can we put it in their hands in such a way that makes it simple to understand, but most importantly, how does it drive them to the outcome of the entire reason why they're looking at this data, right? And they're analyzing this data. And so when we think about market intelligence, and then we think about AI in terms of its trajectory, right? Where it was, and AI has been around for a while, where it is today. Market intelligence is relative, all of this data on the mortgage and real estate side is relatively new as it relates to its access, the ability to access it. And I think it's taking that same path, right? Of you have this idea, you have some data, you're able to understand at the surface level the value of it, and then as you continue to work within it and you collect more, and you start to do, piece together conversations that you're having with LOs or leaders and how they're using it, and then, kind of read between the lines and starting to pull out different use cases. I mean, this thing just starts to grow, right? And it starts to get bigger and bigger. And then you start to see, okay, how can I use other technologies to continue to advance that? That sounds like a whole bunch of nothing, right? A whole bunch of fluff words. And at the end of the day, it really takes this data lake and it turns it into an ocean, and it's massive, right?
I like that. Taking your data lake and turning it into an ocean. Um, But the thing is that there can be multiple data lakes. Like you could have your phone calls, you could have your lead database in one section, you could have um, your referral partners in one section. Like how does um, Model Match connect all of them? But also, how should lenders be thinking about connecting all of these different data lakes and then eventually turning it into an ocean?
Yeah, I think it's the challenge when it comes to having access to so much data is you get that paralysis by analysis, right? And so what we take great care of on our end is understanding how we can take all these different data sets, how we can find those metrics and attributes that really connect them together, bring them all into one space, but then how do you deliver that in such a way that makes it easy to understand for your user, your partner, your client, right? So that they can actually take action on it, and do something with it. Because otherwise, kind of going back to my comment, right? It's all this data is just really numbers on a screen. It's about what you do next that really matters. And so as we look at the data on our side and we start to piece that all together, that next step is how do we deliver it in such a way that it's flexible enough for where you can take action on it and you can actually see that desired outcome come true, which is we got to use data to help grow our business, right? Whether it be getting a new referral partner, growing with an existing referral partner, identifying an LO that we want to recruit, build a relationship with, right? Obtain that volume, earn that trust, build them on, bring them on board. when it comes to the responsibility of the lender side of things, a lot of what you're doing too, right? Being able to take all this data, analyze it, do something with it, deliver it back in such a way where it's clear, it makes sense. We can do something with it now. We can take it on to the next level. I
Yeah.
think data is everything when it comes to this industry and what that next evolution looks like. It's going to be the main driver for all aspects of our business, front office, back office, and beyond.
Yeah. We've also seen that as well. And I feel like you're an expert in this topic, man. You've been doing it for years. And you you might have seen like many different kinds of data formats. But one of the things I wanted to touch on is when you said analysis paralysis. And I feel like that not only applies to the mortgage industry, but in many industries too. People try to overanalyze, over-optimize. But for the leaders watching this podcast, what are some of the main data points and analytics that you've found that drive the mortgage business?
A huge one is, understanding the business as a loan officer, let's say, and we can go to all different levels, but from a loan officer seat, right? It's understanding obviously what you're capturing from your referral partners, right? So what am I getting, and then what am I missing out on? So where are all those opportunities within my existing referral partner network that I'm not capturing, and where's it going? Right. So understanding where's that business going, really identifying too who your competitors are in your market, right? If you do a lot of FHA business, we know with a particular referral partner, you want to know who else is getting the remainder of that, what you're not capturing. So just being really quick on, hey, who should I be most focused on when it comes to growing my business within my existing referral partner network? From a leadership perspective, right? It's where we're growing, right? Loan officers that we're onboarding, right? Is there a pattern that we can identify here? Are we capturing a lot of loan officers from a specific type of lender, right? And then the loan officers that are leaving, loan officers come and go. And so when loan officers leave, where are they going, right? And being able to understand that. And then also understanding from a recruiting perspective, it's so important that you're able to look deep inside of a loan officer that you want to build a relationship with, because this industry is so, it's relationship driven. And so I need to be able to look at those loan officers that are in my area where I'm focused on growing and be able to pull out information within their metrics to identify, is this a loan officer, before I even pick up the phone and make that call or send that text and introduce myself and we go through that song and dance, is this a loan officer that's aligned with my value proposition? What can I offer this loan officer that's even going to make this conversation worthwhile for them? Where can I bring them value? And there's so much within this data that really helps you identify who those individuals are. Again, loan officers and agents, right? It's the same process. If we think about a loan officer, and let's say a recruiter is building a relationship with the loan officer for the same outcome. We want to do business together. We want to grow our business, right? We can do that together. A loan officer approaching a real estate agent is no different. The outcome is the same. We should do business together. We should grow. We should grow together. You're recruiting an agent just like a recruiter is recruiting an LO, right? And
Yeah.
so there's hundreds of metrics that are buried in there that get you to that point of that moment of, this agent is aligned, this LO is aligned.
Yeah. I think you put it perfectly when you said doing deep analysis into your referral partners and then finding out like what business are you getting, what business are you missing, and then maybe like knowing the difference between that and going after the ones that you're missing.
Yeah.
Let's assume I'm like I'm starting like a new branch and then I want to implement some of this in my business. Which examples have you seen where people have been able to do this perfectly? Like you don't have to mention any names or anything, but are there any ones that you admire that have been really been able to nail down this analysis process with referral partners, agents, and things like that?
I think it starts with leadership, right? Leadership has to be involved as it relates to sit down with your LOs, right? If you have an LO that's in your branch or in your area that's feeling stuck, right? I'm not sure who to focus on. I'm making calls. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm getting a lot of voicemails, no callbacks. I'm getting a lot of hangups, right? It's sitting down with that LO as a leader, or if you're an LO, you can do this yourself, right? Sit down and have that
Major
on it.
revolution.
Have that honest conversation. Who am I targeting? Why am I targeting them? Right? Being able to periodically, whether it's every week or every 2 weeks, and I'm kind of pulling this out of experience, right? Every week or every 2 weeks, pull up. What does your pipeline look like? Right? Let's go through the agents that you're reaching out to. Right? Um, let's highlight those that you're most aligned with. Right? They work with a lot of first-time home buyers, and so do you. Right? They're in your market. They work with a lot of LOs that, and I shouldn't say a lot, but they work with LOs that are similar to you, right? Into your structure. You're more aligned with that agent, right? If that agent isn't on your list, isn't on your radar, let's get them on your radar. A lot of the times we see an LO, they pull up a list of those top buyer agents in a market and they're focused on the top buyer agents. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But
Yeah.
those agents are getting bombarded by every other LO at the same time, right? And they a lot of their business, and you can see this in the data, a lot of their business is going to a select few originators, right? They have those strong, deep rooted, loyal relationship. Well, doesn't mean you can't break into that, but it's a lot longer of a process. So let's narrow it down, right? Let's look at the relationships that you already have. Let's focus on growing those first. How can we grow within the existing network? And then let's go and look at the ones you're not doing any business with. Here's one that I tell every single loan officer and every manager that I talk to that's helping a loan officer. The first thing you need to do when you get access to Model Match or any tool, but Model Match in this case, right?
Yeah.
You need to go to your profile as an LO. Go to all of your transactions. We go back to 2017. So go back to 2017 if that's when you were originating. Look at all of the listing agents on those transactions. Put those agents into a list. That's your first list. You're going to work from the top down because you already have a connection. You've already done business with them. They were on the listing side. You're not making a cold call, right? If I call you and say, hey, Thomas, or I say, hey, Michael, this is Thomas, right? And I call out 123 Main Street, right? We worked on that. I was the originator. You're the listing agent. I'm horrible at scripts, by the way. But, what have we done, right? We have a connection. We've done business together in the past. I'm not making a cold call to an agent that's never heard of me. And I'm saying the same thing that everyone else is saying. Hey, you want to meet for coffee on Monday? There's no reason for them to do that, right? Um, I've seen a tremendous amount of success just auditing your own referral partner network and starting right there. Where are those opportunities?
Yeah. Starting with your already existing database, your already existing leads.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, it's
man.
huge.
As you're talking, I'm just feeling the startup execution energy, and I looked at your background and I saw that you've been an executor your whole life, man. And as we all know, the mortgage industry doesn't move as fast. So how are you able to manage your innovation pace to match the industry's pace?
Yeah, I come from telecom, so I grew up in telecom. I started working, at a startup when I was 16 years old. So that's all I know in terms of how, pace and drive, and you got to have some passion for what you're building, right? You have to love what you're building. And my first introduction, just like everybody, I sort of stumbled my way into the mortgage industry. It was very clear early on that the mortgage industry, for better or for worse, is an industry that certainly lagged in terms of innovation on the technology side, right? You have some deep rooted platforms that have been around for quite some time. They have what works. And so, though there's a level of complacency there, I think sometimes in all industries. But that can happen, right? And so, what really excites me about the mortgage industry today is that you're starting to see that change. You're starting to see companies like Model Match, like yours, and like others that are really starting to put things into gear as it relates to, okay, look, we're all okay with what we currently have, right? Maybe we built a successful business off of what we currently have. but there's a whole bunch more out there, right? And I go back to my original comments about the evolution of market intelligence, all this data. And I'm constantly thinking, and I'm grateful to have a team and leadership alongside with me that also believes in this. But, we're never happy with what we currently have, right? We're okay with it, but how far can we take this, right? What's that next level look like? That's where we want to go, and that's where true innovation happens, right? True innovation happens, in that process of building, learning, understanding your product, right? And where you want to go. It doesn't happen in the boardroom, right? It
Yeah.
happens right here.
I'm very excited for companies like yours, companies like ours, and every now and then some young ambitious person just reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I'm working on something that has to do with mortgage guidelines or like voice agents for realtors or like the thing is there's been so much interest in the past year, and I just hope this continues because I feel like we're at an inflection point where mortgage no longer gets the runt of the litter in tech. Now more is like getting like advanced technology, and you guys have been pushing for that for years now. How does that feel when, I'm not sure, how it was like, 5, 8 years ago, but now it feels like there's more and more innovation happening every day. Like, how does it feel?
I think it's well, number one, it feels good, right? It feels good to see it happening. It feels good to be a part of it. And sometimes I know you know this, but sometimes you get a little bit excited because you sort of know what you're building and you know what you're bringing to the table in a handful of months, right? You get a little bit excited about that. Um, I coming from telecom, there was a period of time when it gets a little bit boring because at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing that you've done for a long time. It's well ingrained in terms of the product, and there's only so far you can really go on some things, right? Um, and now I think with AI and everything that's happening on there, and not just AI as a whole, but all the little tiny variables with inside of it, right? With
Yeah,
LLMs and these different models that are out there right now, it's exciting to see the door opening. And what I truly love is I'm starting to see outsiders come in, right? These aren't companies being built by names that everybody knows about, right? These are new names in the industry, just like yourself, relatively, right?
yeah,
That are coming in and saying, "Hey, look, from the outside perspective, I'm taking the outside perspective, and how can I apply it to this industry?" That is really where you start to see, everything just take off, right? And I'm excited to see it for sure.
yeah. Dude, I've seen so many outside companies come in, and what I hear though is there's two camps. There's a camp of the builders and there's a camp of the users. Now, there are some users that are early adopters, they really want to use it, but there's some users that are like, oh, hey, we want things very slow adoption. Things have always been this way for 10 years, and we want it to be this way. How do you deal with people who are slow to adopt technology?
This industry is all about patience, right? And it's relationship driven. So it's about building the relationship with those potential users. We're going to call them potential users, right? But you build that relationship with those potential users. You bring up a really solid point. Adoption in this industry is unlike any I've seen before, right? And I think it's the structure of the industry, right? Where the decision making is happening, the choice to adopt at some level, right? Is at all different levels and different roles. It is a challenge, no doubt. Um, but it's a challenge that I know at model matching coming from the outside. I've been around in the mortgage industry for some time now, but I did not start like most people in this industry. Coming into this industry, I think I take a different perspective on the adoption challenge, and it's a challenge that model match for sure is willing to undertake, right? And to climb that mountain and say, look, you know, we're not going to be satisfied with 4%, 5% adoption rates,
Yeah,
right? We want 80%, 90% across the board with different teams and different roles and different users. We want We want that to go even higher. And how do we do that? Is it just in what you're building as a product because your product is simple? A lot of times in different areas of this industry, it's very challenging to make a product that is simple. You're dealing with a lot of complex um, activities, right? And so naturally speaking, for the most part, the product can be a little bit complex. So how do you balance that, right? And that's where outside influence of user experience, how do we build a nice user experience comes into play. Um, what I love about Model Match and what we've been able to do is we're starting to see more so in about the last year the fruit of that effort and willing to um, climb that mountain of adoption. We're seeing fantastic numbers on our end, again across all different types of lenders and different roles. It's about engaging with your existing users, turning them into champions, creating those moats around you to have them promote
Yeah.
externally, and you have to deliver a good experience. In this industry, it's all about the relationship that you build with them.
Yeah. I feel like you guys have been able to nail down adoption. Like I see some really big names on your website that are using your product. So congratulations to that. But I also know that that's years and years of hard work. So I just wanted to recognize some of the hard work that you've put into it. It's an 8 year overnight success.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that, and it certainly is. I think there's, as you know, with any business, any product, especially on the software side, a lot of the times what you see out there in the open, it feels like wow, like they really took off. Everything looks great, but behind the scenes, there's a lot that's going on, a lot of effort that's put into it, a lot of time and money that's put into it. We've been very blessed, and I think we will continue down that road of what we're doing today and continuing to push the innovation because I think that as we continue to do that, we're going to start to see this industry change on a number of different levels. On the technology side, no doubt we're already seeing that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It's always good to have that recognition, but we're certainly not we're not done yet. I would leave you with on that topic the best thing that you can do as a platform in this industry beyond building solid relationships with those around you and who your targets are is show them that you're better, give them something tangible, right? Have them, you have to have you have to build that trust and then earn that relationship. And you do that by giving them something tangible to say, look, I'm not just sitting here telling you I'm the best and that you got to be on Model Match because we're the future of market intelligence, right? I want to show you why we're the future of market intelligence. And I can do that with you when I've earned that trust and we've built that relationship.
Yeah. Um, so in all of those points that you've made, you've mentioned what should leaders, lenders, and originators do in order to optimize their data analytics. Now, I want to ask you, what should they not do? What are the don'ts of market intelligence?
Spread yourself too thin, right? Don't put up blockades as it relates to access, right? Um, make that make that experience. If you have an LO that has to go to their manager just to look up a number, right? Is that truly actionable data, right? And there's good reasons sometimes why they do that, mostly because of cost, right? But don't make it difficult for your loan officers to get, or even your managers to get access to data that's truly going to help them get one step closer to the next loan because everyone benefits when they have access to that. So don't, break down those barriers, right? If it's a cost issue, if it's an adoption concern, work with your partner, your vendor. We want to be a partner, but your vendor, your platforms, work with them on how to solution for that. So knock down the barriers, right? Start simple. What's the first thing we can do that's going to have real value? And we're going to see the impact from it, right? Don't spread out too far yet, right? Master one or two small things with inside of that data, some key attributes and metrics that you feel are going to drive you forward. Master those, and then branch yourself out and learn a little bit more and build upon that knowledge. So the two main components I would say is knock down the barriers for access. Right. If it's an affordability or adoption concern, work with your enterprise partners to solve for that. Right. How can I get more of my team access to this data? Right. And keep that affordable. That's super important. knock down barriers for adoption, and then start small in terms of what you're mastering in the data. There's a lot of data, right?
Yeah.
Focus in on one area. If it's just building a list of all of the listing agents for your LOs and giving them that list inside a model match, for example, and say, hey, look, we built you a list of all the listing agents back to 2017. Here are the key ones. There's 25 of them. Maybe keep that list small. Start from the top and work your way down. Work your way down the list, and then we can branch out a little bit more. You're going to have so much more success if you start small, keep it simple, master those few techniques, and then start to get deeper into the platforms.
Start small and don't spread yourself too thin. Thomas, thank you so much for all the wisdom today. How can the
Absolutely.
audience reach out to you?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, of course. I'm always on LinkedIn. So connect with me on LinkedIn. You can always follow Model Match, our page too. We post there from time to time. You can find us on YouTube, right? You'll usually see my pretty face on all those videos. But I'm around, and I would say the easiest way, connect with me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email. It's thomas@modelmatch.com. Pretty straightforward.
Amazing. The
Yeah.
executor, Mr. Thomas Seelbinder, thank you so much for coming on the pod today. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. To the
Yeah.
audience, this has been another episode of the Loan Officer Playbook Podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.